Hello, 6th graders. Welcome to Big Ideas Math, Section 2.1, Multiplying Fractions Lesson. Pause while you write Section 2.1 lesson in your math notebook. Pause while you write today's learning objective in your math notebook. Today's objective is, I can multiply fractions by fractions, fractions by mixed numbers, and mixed numbers by mixed numbers by completing Big Ideas Math practice with 100% accuracy in multiple attempts. Today we're going to be working on 6 examples on pages 56 through 58 in your math textbook. At the top of page 56, there's a key idea. You need to write this in your math notebook. It says multiplying fractions. Multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. This is really, really important because that's how you multiply fractions. You multiply across the top and you multiply across the bottom. So 3/7 times 1/2 equals 3/14 because 3 times 1 is 3, 7 times 2 equals 14. And it shows you how to do that with algebra. So write the words, write the numbers, and write the algebra in your math notebook. Pause while you take a moment to do that. Now let's take a look at example 1, multiplying fractions. It says to find 1/5 times 1/3. So we multiply across the top, we multiply the numerators, 1 times 1, and we multiply 5 times 3. So we're going to multiply the denominators. So 1 times 1 equals 1, and 5 times 3 equals 15. And then it says to simplify. This is already in simplest form, so we are done. So our answer is 1/15. So now let's look at example 2. It says multiplying fractions with common factors. And when we do this, it's going to kind of show us a shortcut so that we don't have as much simplifying to do at the end. So find 8/9 times 3/4. The first thing we do is estimate. And of course we do that to see if our answer at the end is reasonable. So if we round 8/9 to 1, we can see that 1 times 3/4 equals 3/4. So our answer that we get should be close to 3/4. So let's look at what the book has us do. 8/9 times 3/4. We're going to be multiplying the numerators and multiplying the denominators. So 8 times 3 and 9 times 4. But before we do that, we're going to do a little canceling out here of the common factors. So we know that 8 and 4, that 8 is divisible by 4. So we can take 4 and divide it into 8. 4 goes into 8 2 times. So 4 goes into itself once, so we make that a 1. And it goes into 8 twice, so we make that a 2. And 3 goes into itself once, and 3 goes into 9 twice, or 9 3 times. So we make that a 3. So instead of just multiplying straight across and then having big numbers to simplify, we have smaller numbers to work with if we divide out the common factors. And then, when we multiply across, we have 2 times 1, which equals 2, and 3 times 1, which equals 3. So our simplifying step is much easier. So the product is 2/3. So is that reasonable? Is 2/3 close to 3/4? And the answer is yes. So let's move on to page 57. Example 3, where we have a real-life application. We have 2/3 of a bag of flour, and we use 3/4 of the flour, so that means 3/4 of the whole bag, to make empanada dough. How much of the entire bag do we use to make the dough? So this is similar to the problem that we did in Activity 1 for this section. Method 1, use a model. 6 of the 12 squares have both types of shading. So we made a quick model off to the side. where we shaded 3/4 and we shaded 2/3, and the overlapping squares are shaded green here. So you use 6/12, which equals 1/2 of the entire bag. Method 2, to find 3/4 of 2/3, we multiply. And so when we multiply the numerators and the denominators and we divide the common factors, we get 1/2. So we use 1/2 of the entire bag. Example 4, we are asked to multiply a fraction and a mixed number. So find 1/2 times 2 3/4. The first thing, as always, that we do is estimate. So we are going to round 2 3/4 to 3. And so we multiply 1/2 times 3 is going to be 1 1/2. So we're looking for our answer to be close to 1 1/2. So remember from 5th grade that we need to change 2 3/4 to an improper fraction. And off to the side, I'm going to refresh your memory about how to do that. 2 3/4, 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 equals 11, and the denominator stays the same. So you multiply the denominator times the whole number, and then you add the numerator. So you multiply 1/2 times 11/4. So we wrote 2 3/4 as an improper fraction, and then we are going to multiply the numerators and the denominators. There are no common factors here that we can divide, so when we multiply we get 11/8, and we need to simplify that so we don't have an improper fraction. So we take 11 and we divide it by 8. 8 goes into 11 one time. 11 minus 8 is 3. So we end up with 1 3/8. That's a little messy there. So you can read it over here in the answer, 1 3/8. So the product is 1 3/8. Is that reasonable? Is 1 3/8 close to 1 1/2? Yes, because 1 1/2 equals 1 4/8, so it's very close. Our last two examples are on page 58. Example 5 has us multiplying mixed numbers. This is going to work exactly like the last example did, except that we have to switch both of the numbers into improper fractions. So first of all, we're going to estimate. We're going to round 1 4/5. It's close to 2, so we round that to 2. And 3 2/3 is close to 4, so we round it to 4. So our estimate is 2 times 4, which equals 8. And then we change both of our mixed numbers into improper fractions. So 1 4/5 becomes 9/5. 3 2/3 becomes 11/3. And then we are going to multiply our fractions, and we're going to divide out the common factor 3. So we see that 9 and 3 are common factors. So 3 goes into 9 3 times. So 3 goes into itself 1 time, so it becomes a 1, goes into 9 3 times, so it becomes a 3 on the top. The 9 becomes a 3. So when we multiply that, we get 3 times 11, which is 33. 5 times 1 is 5. And then we simplify, and we get 6 3/5. So the product is 6 3/5. Is it reasonable? Is 6 3/5 close to 8? We say yes, it's close enough. Now let's look at example 6, a real-life application. A city is resurfacing a basketball court. Find the area of the court. So we need to remember that area is where you multiply the length times the width. So we have a length and a width of 21 1/3 times 13 1/2 meters. So we are going to estimate, and when we do that, we round 21 1/3 to 21, and we round 13 1/2 to 14, and we come up with an estimate of 294 meters. So the book has very nicely reminded you of your area formula, and we substitute in our numbers, and we change 21 1/3 to an improper fraction, so it comes out to be 64 thirds, and 13 halves comes out to be 27, 13 1/2 comes out to be 27 halves. Multiply fractions and use our shortcut of dividing out common factors. So the 3 goes into 27 9 times, basic multiplication fact, and 2 goes into 64 32 times. So when you do that, you end up with much easier math, and 32 times 9 equals 288, and you have a 1 on the bottom. So when you have 288 over 1, it equals 288. So your simplifying is super easy. So the area of the court is 288 square meters. And I forgot to put the square up at the top. So is 288 about 294? Yes. So our answer is reasonable. Remember, to earn credit for viewing your flipped lesson, you need to complete your notes in your interactive student notebook, complete your on-your-own questions in your interactive student notebook, and submit those in Google Forms. Complete your Big Ideas math assignment in your math notebook, and submit that when it is 100% correct, and be sure you ask your teacher if you have any questions.